All right, Jim, thank you. Thanks for getting up early. We appreciate it. We'll see you. Let's turn to our guest host. He's the top Republican on the Intelligence Committee and a senior member of the Senate Appropriations Committee. And I just learned this, the really good way to say it. He's Missouri Republican. Kit Bond is here for the next 2 hours. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. It's great to be with you.
It's great to see you. So you're the smartest guy in the Senate because you're at the top of this Intelligence Committee? Is that...
That would be a low stump to jump, but I don't claim that to be intelligence. My job is to find out about intelligence and oversee the community.
And Missouri, we had, who was it, Cam Fine last week from Missouri? Because I know everything about Missouri now. I know that Jefferson City is like the 15th biggest, but yet it's the capital.
Of course,
up St. Louis.
Cam Fine worked for me when I was governor.
Oh, did he really?
He was he's part of the Bond alum team. I don't know whether he'll admit it or not, but he does a great job for community bankers who are important in the state of Missouri. But that's also where Albert Pujols is leading the home runs.
Very nice.
Just in case you had missed it.
Which you at St. Louis or you're both?
I grew up as a St. Louis Cardinal fan. When the Royals get hot, I like to see the Royals succeed. But I'm basically I grew up in Cardinal Nation.
Yeah, I mean and
it comes with your blood. That and barbecue, you got to have a lot of that.
I'm with you. I've never been I cannot hope for the Browns or the Indians. It could never happen from being from Cincinnati. But let me start with this. As recently as last week, we saw a little bit of the president's approval rating came down a little bit, maybe 5 points or so. People say that they love him personally, but maybe some of these programs are starting to cause his approval rating to come down a little bit. But then I read, doesn't matter with him because the opposition party is non-existent. That Republicans have a 0 approval rating at this point. I'm exaggerating, but
thanks.
Yeah.
I needed that. Yeah, I get up before breakfast in the morning and I come out and take one of those shots.
Do you read that though that it doesn't matter what his approval rating is since the opposition is in such dire shape at this point? That's overdone, isn't it? Is that the New York Times?
I think. Well, I really treat myself to not reading that kind of stuff in the morning.
Yeah.
But we obviously, when you've lost an election as we have, you're down. Everybody wishes Barack Obama well. They want to see him succeed. But as you start to look at his policies, people are really beginning to scratch their heads. And I don't care about the national polls. I listen to the people in Missouri, and they're beginning to say, where are we going? And I think there's a big concern.
Senator, where was the turning point for you, though? Was there a point where you said, okay, this is a step that's gone too far?
Well, I tell you, when he came out with a budget that proposed doubling the national debt in 5 years, tripling it in 10. It took us 232 years to run up a debt of a little over $5 trillion. He wants to drive it to 11 in 5 years, 17 in 10. And then the president comes out and says, we're in a deficit. We got to do something. Well, there's the basic rule of holes. If you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. If you're in a deficit hole, stop spending. But he continues to want to spend and tax, and cap and trade, which we call cap and tax, is another problem. We want to see health care reformed, but not a government takeover of it. So there are a lot of good objectives, but how he's getting there really concerns me and a lot of the people I represent.
I just wonder how healthcare is what we've been talking about a lot, and I'm wondering how this progresses from here. What is the latest House version? Has no price tag on
Correct.
it. And they asked Steny Hoyer what the story. Well, we don't really have those details yet. Will they just keep moving this along?
They're trying to move it in the Senate. The people on the Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee are telling me that the 3 major components, what the so-called government option, which would be the government takeover, has not been done, employer mandates, but they want to push it through. And we have a price tag of $1 trillion on the Kennedy plan coming out of that committee, and the initial proposal on the Finance Committee plan was $1.6 trillion, and nobody really knows where it's going. And I have a number of questions about it. We need to reform health care, but we don't want a government takeover of our health care.
So how do you do that? How do you reform without a government takeover?
There are lots of things that you can do. First, the first thing you need to do is deal with the entitlement that we have that's so far out of control. Medicare has an unfunded debt of obligation of $36 trillion. And Medicare is causing problems throughout the healthcare system because Medicare does not pay hospitals or doctors the cost of operating or providing service, so they shift it to the private pay. We have to deal with Medicare first. Then we need to deal with roughly 16 to 20 million who are truly uninsured. The 47 million figure has 11 million who are eligible for Medicare or S-chip.
Well, at this point, I'm just wondering what we talk about what could happen and what will happen. What is going to happen?
I don't know what's going to happen on health care. I hope that Republicans have a seat at the table to offer constructive suggestions that don't have a government takeover, because I think a government option will lead to a steady but sure. Well, okay, once you have a government option, you take a look at what happened when you had the government had an option in student loans.
Yep.
They squeezed the private sector out. Government options are politically run. They will ratchet down their costs, subsidize them, and push costs off onto the private sector, so it'll drive them out. Even the Congressional Budget Office says that the Kennedy plan will drive 16 million people out of their existing private plans.
Sure.
And you'll wind up with a government takeover, which will be the public option.
Is under the plan you envision, would there still be a segment of the population who has no insurance? Should individual mandates, yes or no?
What I would like to see is a system where you change the tax code to say that everybody gets a tax if they're not Medicaid eligible, that they get a tax deduction or tax credit for a basic plan. And we also need to make sure that small businesses have an option, as Karen Mills said in a great segment you had on Friday, that they can get into a plan to get the bargaining power that a large corporation or a union has. And then I would say that if you are above the poverty level and you don't choose to get a plan, I would think that you would pay a penalty that would go into an uncompensated care fund,
Right.
Probably less than insurance, but that would cover it, because 7.5 million people, I think, make over $75,000
And
And
still
choose
don't
not
want
to pay.
insurance, right.
Yeah.
You know, Senator, one question I have with that, though, is where you set up this the program like you were talking about, where people can get this, where small businesses can get in, where people would be receiving tax credits. Do we change the structure of our healthcare system today, meaning that many large employers no longer offer healthcare programs for their employees?
This would not disturb the employer provided health care. That's the important thing.
How not? If I'm a big employer and I see that my employees can get a big tax credit if they pay for it themselves, great. Then this is no longer something I'm going to offer.
Well, they're going to. They can offer the benefits of administering the plan. It's simpler for them to provide it. It would probably be less beneficial. The employer would still get the deduction for what they pay for health care. But if you're getting good health care, if you like the system, why would you get out of a plan? And I think,
although not that we would drop out of these plans, but big employers have been screaming for years about how their health care costs are growing 9, 10, 11% a year.
Well, that's one of the reasons you need to reform Medicare. You need to put choice in the system. Medicare Part D shows that you can control costs with choice, emphasizing. Well, Steve Bird of Safeway, who's been on with you, showed how you can reward healthy behavior and make health care less expensive.
Did you say, has he been on? I don't know if I've quoted him a few
we've talked
times
about him
because
I thought he was.
I want to have him on. I mean,
You really should.
I know.
He's appeared before the Senate a couple of times, and it isn't the total solution, but it's a very.
He's kept it flat for 5 years.
And people are healthier, fewer obese.
Yeah.
Lots of good things. Safeway's
Can we do that? Let's do that. Anyway, thank you, Senator. We'll making an appeal. That's the way to do it, right? We'll be hearing a lot more from Senator Bond, Kit Bond. this morning. I like that. You get that a lot, Keith?
You've never heard that.
Heard that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
First time. When we come back this morning, crude sliding more than 3% over the past 7 days. Is that drop sustainable? We'll talk to oil industry veteran John Hofmeister, one of Shell's former executives, so stick around.
Time now for today's Aflac trivia question. How many years